I'm back with the third part of PGBP chapter question answers from ICI Study Mat. In this video, I'll be covering rest of the illustration, that is from illustration number 17 to 22, as I've already covered till illustration number 16 in my first two videos. Okay, the PDF link you will get in the description. Do watch the video till the end. Don't forget to subscribe the channel for more updated videos. Okay, and also click on the bell icon. You will get the update of the videos which is being uploaded on my channel. Okay, so let's start with illustration number 17. Okay, illustration number 17. Hari, an individual, carried on the business of purchase and sale of agricultural commodities like paddy, wheat, etc. He borrowed loan from Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation, that is APSFC, and Indian banks, and has not paid interest as detailed hereunder. Okay, these are the interest given which has not been paid by Mr. Hari. Okay, Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation, previous year 1819 and 1920, total interest is 15 lakhs, and interest in respect of Indian banks for the previous year 1920 is 30 lakhs. Total interest is 45 lakhs. Okay, both APSFC, that is Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation, and Indian Bank, while restructuring the loan facility of Hari during the previous year 1920, converted the above interest payable by Hari to them as a loan repayable in 60 installments. Okay, the interest which was payable by Mr. Hari, both the Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation and Indian banks, they have converted that interest payable into loan. Okay, and the loan is repayable in 60 installments. During the year ended 31st March 2020, Hari paid 5 installments to APSFC and 3 installments to Indian banks. Okay, Hari claimed the entire interest of 45 lakhs as an expenditure while computing the income from business of purchase and sales of agricultural commodities. Discuss whether his claim is valid, and if not, what is the amount of interest, if any, allowable. Okay, so in this case, interest of 45 lakhs will not be allowed to Mr. Hari as per section 43B. Okay, it is said that interest which is actually paid, that is only allowed as deduction under the head PGBP. Okay, in this case, as only 5 installments and 3 installments are paid, will compute accordingly. 15 lakh divided by 60 into 5, that in respect of Andhra Pradesh, that interest will be allowed as deduction to Mr. Hari, and in respect of Indian banks, 30 lakhs divided by 60 installments into 3 installments, that will be allowed, and total will be computed accordingly. Okay, let's see how the solution goes. According to section 43B, any interest payable on the term loan to the specified financial institution and any interest payable on any loan and advances to scheduled banks shall be allowed only in the year of payment of such interest, irrespective of the method of accounting followed by the SSC. So whether whatever accounting policy they are following, but the payment of interest on actual basis is made, then only deduction will be allowed to SSC in the under the head PGBP. Okay, where there is a default in the payment of interest by the SSC, such unpaid interest may be converted into loan. It may be converted into loan as the bank, Indian Bank, and as well as the Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation has converted the interest payable in loan amount into converted into loan. Such conversion of unpaid interest into loan shall not be construed as payment of interest for the purpose of section 43B. So the conversion of interest which was payable and it has not been paid, and the conversion of interest payable into loan, that will not amount to payment of interest under section 43B. Okay, the amount of unpaid interest so converted as loan shall be allowed as deduction only in the year in which converted loan is actually paid. Okay, so this interest which has been converted into loan, so on the year of actual payment of this interest, okay, in that year only deduction will be allowed. So in this year only 5 installments in respect of Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation, as I said, and in respect of 3 installments of Indian banks, that amount will be allowed as deduction. Okay, in the given case of Hari, the unpaid interest of rupees 15 lakhs due to Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation and of 30 lakhs due to Indian banks was converted into loan. Such conversion would not amount to payment of interest and would not therefore be eligible for deduction in the year of such conversion. Okay. Hence, claim of Hari that the entire interest of 45 lakhs is to be allowed as deduction in the year of conversion is not tenable. As I said, it will not be allowed as deduction 45 lakhs. The deduction shall be allowed only to the extent of repayment made during the financial year. Accordingly, the amount of interest eligible for deduction for the assessment year 2021 shall be calculated as follows. So they have made the table for that. Interest outstanding, number of installments, amount per installment, installment paid, and interest allowable. So Andhra Pradesh State Financial Corporation, total outstanding interest was 15 lakhs. Number of installments they have converted into interest into loan, that is 60 installments, and amount per installment is 25,000, that is 15 lakh divided by 60. So installment paid is 5, so interest allowable is 1,25,000, that is 15 lakh divided by 60 installments into 5 installments, okay, which has been paid during this financial year, that is assessment year 2021, you can say. And in respect of Indian Bank, total interest outstanding is 30 lakhs, number of installments which has been converted into loan 60 installments, amount per installment is 50,000, installment paid is 3 installments, so 50 into 3 is equal to 1,50,000. So total amount eligible for deduction to Mr. Hari will be 2,75,000. He cannot claim deduction on entire 45 lakhs. The amount which will be paid in future, the year in which the installment will be paid, that amount will be allowed as deduction that year. So in this year only 5 installments in respect of Andhra Pradesh and 3 installments in respect of Indian banks has been allowed as deduction. Okay, so hope you have understood this one. It was a simple question, but it was a nice question. Okay, let's move to next illustration, that is illustration number 18. Okay, Vinod is a person carrying on profession as film artist. His gross receipt from profession are as under. Financial year 16-17 is 1,15,000. For financial year 17-18 is 1,80,000. Financial year 18-19 is 2,10,000. What is his obligation regarding the maintenance of books of account for the assessment year 2021 under section 44AA of the Income Tax Act? Okay, as Mr. Vinod is a film artist, it is covered in the specified profession. Okay, so the criteria for specified profession for maintenance of books of accounts is that if his gross receipt in more than 1,50,000 in respect of 3 preceding financial years, okay, in the preceding 3 financial years, in each of the 3 preceding financial years, if his gross receipts is exceeding 1,50,000, then only it is required to maintain books of accounts as per section 44AA. Okay, so in this case, as his book gross receipts in financial year 16-17 is not exceeding 1,50,000, it has not required to maintain books of accounts as per section 44AA. Okay, let's see. Section 44AA(1) requires every person carrying on profession notified by the board in the official gazette, that is, in addition to the profession already specified therein, to maintain such books of accounts and other documents as may enable the assessing officer to compute his total income in accordance with the provision of the Income Tax Act 1961. Okay, as per Rule 6F, a person carrying on a notified profession shall be required to maintain specified books of accounts only if his gross receipts in all the 3 years immediately preceding the relevant previous year has exceeded 1,50,000. So in this case, in previous year 16-17, gross receipts have not exceeded 1,50,000, so it is not required to maintain specified books of accounts. Specified books of accounts is like cash book, journal, ledger, carbon copy of bill exceeding 25,000, original bill for expenditure exceeding 50,000. This specified books of accounts, it is not required to be maintained by Mr. Vinod. Okay, so number Roman 2, it is a new profession which is set up in the relevant previous year, it is likely to exceed 1,50,000 in that previous year. So if it is a new profession, then new specified profession I should say, then if in the current year, the previous year in which it has started as a new profession, in that previous year it is likely that the amount will exceed 50,000, then it has required to maintain books of specified books of accounts, okay, as per rule 6F. Okay, in the present case, Vinod is a person carrying on profession as a film artist, which is a notified profession. Since his gross receipts have not exceeded 1,50,000 in the financial year 16-17, the requirement under section 44AA to compulsory maintain the prescribed books of accounts is not applicable to him for the assessment year 2021. So it is not required to maintain specified books of accounts as per section as per rule 6F. Okay, so but let's see what they're saying next. Mr. Vinod, however, required to maintain such books of accounts as would enable the assessing officer to compute his total income. It is not required to maintain specified books of accounts, as I said, that cash book, journal, ledger, but it is required. Mr. Vinod has to maintain such books of accounts as would enable the assessing officer to compute his total income. Okay, hope you understood this one as well. Now moving to illustration number 19. Mr. Praveen, engaged in retail trade, reported a turnover of 1,98,50,000 for the financial year 1920. His income from said business as per books of accounts is 11,20,000, computed as per the provision of chapter 4D, profit and gain from business or profession, of the Income Tax Act 1961. All the transactions are carried out by way of account pay check, ECS through bank account. Okay, retail trade is the only source of income for Mr. Praveen. Assessment year 1920 was the first year for which he declared his business income in accordance with the provision of the presumptive taxation under section 44AD. Okay, so Mr. Praveen is going has in the previous year 1918, that is assessment year 1920, it has maintained books of accounts as per presumptive taxation, that is 44AD. It is following presumptive taxation. Okay, and in this current year financial year, its turnover is not exceeding 2 crores, so it can maintain books of it can follow presumptive taxation. Okay, and his income from the said business is 11,20,000. Let's see what the question is asking. Is Mr. Praveen eligible to opt for presumptive taxation scheme in respect of his income from retail trade for the assessment year 2021? Yes, he is eligible to opt for presumptive taxation for the assessment year 2021. Let's see the answer. Yes, since his total turnover for the financial year 1920 is below 200 lakhs, he is eligible to opt for presumptive taxation scheme under section 44AD in respect of his retail trade business. It can opt because the turnover is not exceeding 200 lakhs. Okay. Now second part, if so, determine his income from retail trade as per the applicable presumptive provision. So for Mr. Praveen, the income for as per presumptive taxation will be 6% on his turnover. Okay, as because all his transaction is through a bank account. Okay, and all the transactions are carried by a bank account during the previous year, and it is the only source of income of Mr. Praveen. Okay, let's see his income from retail trade. Answer is this solution. His income from retail trade applying the presumptive taxation provision under section 44AD would be 11,91,000, being 6% of 1,98,50,000. Okay, it was simple. In case question number 3, in case Mr. Praveen does not opt for presumptive taxation of income from retail trade, what are his obligations under the Income Tax Act 1961? If Mr. Praveen does not opt for presumptive taxation income, then in the year in which he is not opting for presumptive taxation, from that year, leaving that previous year, for next 5 previous year, he cannot opt for presumptive taxation scheme. The year in which he opts out from that year, After that year, 5 years, he cannot opt for presumptive taxation. Okay, and in this case, and in that case, the year in which he is opting out of presumptive taxation and his turnover is exceeding the basic exemption, okay, then Mr. Praveen would be required to get his accounts audited. Okay, let's see the solution. Mr. Praveen had declared profit for the previous year 18-19 in accordance with the presumptive provision, and if he does not opt for presumptive provision for any of the 5 consecutive assessment years, if it does not opt for presumptive provision for any of the 5 consecutive assessment years, that is assessment year 21 to 2021 to assessment year 24 to 25, he would not be eligible to claim benefit of presumptive taxation for 5 assessment years subsequent to the assessment year relevant to the previous year in which profit has not been declared in accordance with the presumptive provision. That is, if it does not opt for presumptive taxation in, say, previous year 1920, then he would not be eligible for to claim the benefit of presumptive taxation for assessment year 21-22 to assessment year 25 to 26. That is, if he does not opt for presumptive in the previous year 1920, that is assessment year 2021, then for the next 5 assessment, that is from 21-22 assessment year to 25-26, he cannot opt for presumptive taxation. Okay. Consequently, Mr. Praveen is required to maintain the books of accounts and get them audited under section 44AB since his income exceeds the basic exemption limit. As I said, since he's opted out for presumptive taxation and his income is exceeding the basic exemption, so Mr. Praveen is required to get the accounts audited as per section 44AB. Okay. Now part 4. What is the due date for filing his return of income under both the options? Okay, so if he's not required to get the accounts audited and is opting for presumptive, then it will be 31st July, and if it is required to get the accounts audited, then this September will be the due date. Okay, so let's see. In case he opts for presumptive taxation scheme under section 44AD, the due date would be 31st July 2020. In case he does not opt for presumptive taxation scheme, he is required to get his books of accounts audited, in which case the due date for filing of return of income would be 30th September 2020. Hope you understood this one as well. Okay. Now let's move to next illustration, which is illustration number 20. Okay. Mr. X commenced the business of operating goods vehicles on 1st April 2019. Okay, he purchased the following vehicles during the previous year 1920. Compute his income under section 44 AE for the assessment year 2021. Okay, gross vehicles weight is given in kilograms, number of vehicles is given, and date of purchase is given. Okay, would your answer change if the 2 vehicles purchased in April 2019 were put to use only in July? That will not make any difference, as the provision says that whether the SSE has put to use or not, it can income will be computed as per section 44AE if the SSE owns the vehicles. Okay, whether it has put to use or not, it will not make any difference. Okay, and in this case the gross vehicle weight in kilogram is given. So first we have to compute what are the vehicles which are heavy goods vehicles and what are the other vehicles, because heavy goods vehicles calculation will be different and other vehicles calculation will be different. In heavy goods vehicles we have to compute 1000 per ton per month, okay, into number of vehicles, and for other vehicles 7500 per month or part of the month. Okay, so let's see what are the heavy goods vehicles. Heavy goods vehicles definition says that heavy goods vehicles are those as any goods and carriers, the goods gross vehicle weight of which is exceeding 12,000 kilograms. Okay, in this case in number 5 and 6, gross vehicle weight is exceeding 12,000 in this 2 case. Okay, 5 and 6, and in that two case gross vehicle weight is 15,000 and 15,000 kilograms. Okay, and there is another criteria in section 44 AE that the SSE can opt for section 44 AE presumptive taxation for transportation only if his total vehicles is maximum 10 vehicles. Okay, so in this case let's see number of vehicles. This is given 2 1 3 1 2 1. Total is 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Total 10 vehicles is there. So he can opt for presumptive taxation under section 44 AE and will compute the income accordingly. Let's see how the solution goes. Since Mr. X does not own more than 10 vehicles at any time during the previous year 1920, he is eligible to opt for presumptive taxation scheme under section 44AE. Okay, they are saying the provision 1000 per ton of gross vehicle weight or unladen weight per month or part of the month for each heavy goods vehicles. Okay, as I said, 1000 per ton, okay, into month or part of the month for each heavy goods vehicles. Okay, and rupees 7,500 per month or part of the month for each goods carriage other than heavy goods vehicle owned by him would be deemed as his profit and gain from such goods carriage. Okay, now let's see. First, heavy goods vehicles means any goods carriage the gross vehicle weight of which exceeds 12,000 kgs. Okay, 12,000 kgs is, as I said, in point number 5 and 6 is exceeding. To total vehicles is 2 plus 1 is 3 vehicles, and rest 7 vehicles is other than heavy goods vehicles. Okay, so they have computed first heavy goods vehicles calculation. Number of vehicles is 2 and 1, and date of purchase was given in the sum. They have written that only 29 August 2019 and 23rd February 2020. Okay, number of months for which vehicles is owned, that is 8 months in case of 2 vehicles and 2 months in case of 1 vehicles. Okay, so total number of months will be number of months into number of vehicles is 16 months, 8 into 2 and 2 months, that is 2 into 1, that is total is 18 months. Okay, and goods vehicles other than heavy goods vehicles will be are 2131, total is 7. Okay, and the date of purchase is given and number of months they have calculated accordingly. You can see the calculation yourself. If any doubt you can, because part of the month is calculated a full month. So in the heavy goods vehicles which are purchased on 10th April, so they have considered April, May, June, that is full year will be taken, 12 months they have taken, that's why. And for the March, 1 month will be taken, and for July, from July to March it is they have taken, and for 2nd January 2020 they have taken January to March. Okay, so 2 into 12 is 24, 1 into 1 is 1, and 3 into 9 is 27, and 1 into 3 is 3. Total is 55 months. Okay, so presumptive income of Mr. X under section 44AE for the assessment year 2021 would be 6,82,500. How they have computed? 55 months into 7,500. Okay, so it was 7,500 per month, part of the month. Okay, to total is 55, so 55 into 7,500, and they have added being for other than heavy goods vehicles plus 18 months for heavy goods vehicles, 18 into 1000 into 15 ton being for heavy goods vehicles. How they have computed 15 months, 15 tons, that is they have computed on a single basis, because in respect of both the vehicles it was 15,000 kilograms. So 15,000 kilograms divided by 1000, so it is 15 tons. 15 tons into 1000. Okay, that is they have written in the provision that rupees 1000 per ton is there. So 15 into 1000 into 18 months it was given in the calculation. So total presumptive income as per section 44A is 6,82,000. Okay, now the answer would remain the same even if the two vehicles purchased in April 2019 were put to use only in July 2019, since the presumptive income has to be calculated per month or part of the month for which the vehicles is owned by Mr. X. Okay, whether it has put to use or not, it is not relevant. For how much period it was owned by SSE, for that period only we'll do the calculation. Okay, hope you have understood this one. It was a good question. It is exam oriented question, so please go through it. If you go through this question before the examination, okay, 2 or 3 times, it will stick in your mind and you can solve it easily, and it will save your time as well. Okay, so now moving to next illustration. Illustration number 21. Alpha Cooperative Bank amalgamated with Beta Cooperative Bank on 1st December 2019. The depreciation for the year ended 31st March 2020, calculated as per the Income Tax Rules 1962, allowable to Alpha Cooperative Bank had the amalgamation had not taken place, amounts to 2,40,000. Compute the deduction on account of depreciation allowable in the hands of Alpha Cooperative Banks and Beta Cooperative Banks for the assessment year 2021. So Alpha Cooperative Bank and is getting amalgamated with Beta Cooperative Bank. Okay, and if the amalgamation would have not taken place, the depreciation that would have been allowed to Alpha Cooperative Bank was 2,40,000. So accordingly, so number of days will be calculated, and will accordingly depreciation will be allocated on the proportionate basis on the number of days it is used by Alpha Limited and it was used by Beta Limited. Okay, so for from 1st April to 30th November, okay, it will be depreciation will be charged in the hands of Alpha Limited, that is 2,40,000 into the total is coming to 244 days. Okay, 244 days divided by 366 as is the leap year. So 1,60,000 will be allowed in the to Alpha Limited, and 80,000 will be allowed to Beta Limited. Okay, so we'll see the solution. They have first written the formula and they have explained the formula as well. The amount of deduction allowable to amalgamating cooperative bank, that is Alpha Cooperative Bank in this case, under section 32 has to be determined in accordance with the following formula: A into B divided by C. Okay, what is A, what is B, and what is C, they have explained. So the amount of deduction allowable to predecessor cooperative bank, that is Alpha Cooperative Bank in this case, if the business reorganization had not taken place. In this case, the amount of deduction is 2,40,000. Okay, the number of days, B, the number of days comprised in the period beginning with the first day of financial year, that is 1st April 2019 in this case, and ending on the day immediately preceding the day of business reorganization, that is 30th November 2019 in this case. Okay, so total number of days will be coming to 244. Okay, and number C, the total number of days in the financial year in which the business reorganization has taken place. So total number of days is 366 as it is a leap year. So in February 29 days will be taken. And Roman 2, the amount of deduction allowable to amalgamated cooperative bank, that is Beta Cooperative Bank in this case, under section 32 has to be determined in accordance with the following formula: A into B by C, and they've explained A, B and C. The amount of deduction allowable to predecessor cooperative bank, that is Alpha Cooperative Bank, if the business reorganization had not taken place. In this case, the amount of deduction is 2,40,000. So the number of days comprised in the period beginning with the day of business reorganization, that is 1st December 2019 in this case, and ending on the last day of the financial year, that is 31st March 2020. Okay, and C is the total number of days in the financial year in which business reorganization has taken place, that is 366. Okay, so they have computed, they are doing the calculation the third part. First they have written the formula of the two for Alpha Limited and for Beta Limited, amalgamating and amalgamated company. Okay, in this case, deduction that would have been allowable under section 32 Alpha Cooperative Bank had the business reorganization has not taken place is 2,40,000, and the business reorganization took place on 1st December 2019. Therefore, the deduction allowable to Alpha Cooperative Bank under section 32 would be 1,60,000 as I said, that is 2,40,000 into 244 divided by 366 days. Okay, so that is coming to 1,60,000. The deduction allowable to Beta Cooperative Bank would be rupees 80,000, that is 2,40,000 into 122 divided by 366. Don't do it in exam, that is 2,40,000 minus 1,60,000. do the calculation as it is shown here. Okay, marks can be deducted, so better solve it like this, that is 2,40,000 into 244 divided by 366, and for amalgamated company 80 amalgamated cooperative banks, it that is 2,40,000 into 122 divided by 366. Okay, hope you have understood. It is a simple question, how they have done depreciation of proportionate basis on the number of days amalgamating company and amalgamated company has used the assets. Okay, so moving to the next illustration, which is illustration number 22, and which is the last illustration of this chapter. Okay, so let's move to last illustration. Miss Vivita, a resident and ordinary resident in India, has derived the following income from various operations relating to plantation and estates owned by her during the year ended 31st March 2020. Okay, serial number, particulars and rupees is given. Income from sale of centrifuged latex processed from rubber plant grown in Darjeeling is 3 lakhs. Okay, and number 2, income from sale of coffee grown and cured in Yercaud, Tamil Nadu is 1 lakh, and income from sale of coffee grown, cured, roasted and grounded in Colombo, that is outside India, sale consideration was received nahi. It is income is deriving outside India, but consideration is received in India. Okay, 2,50,000. Income from sale of tea grown and manufactured in Shimla, 4 lakh. Okay, and income from sapling and seedling grown in nursery at Cochin. Basic operation were not carried out by her on land. You are required to compute the business income and agriculture income of Miss Vivita for the assessment year 2021. Okay, so in this case, in Roman 1, the income will be business income and agricultural income will compute. That is, in that case, in Roman 1, for 35% will be business income and 65% will be agriculture income, as it is income from growing and manufacturing of rubber. Okay, so in that case, business income will be 35% and agriculture income will be 65%. We'll calculate accordingly. And in Roman 2, income from sale of coffee grown and cured in Yercaud, Tamil Nadu, in that case, income will be 25% business income and 75% will be agriculture income. Okay, and in third case, income from sale of coffee grown, cured, roasted and grounded in Colombo, in that case 100% will be a business income, as it is not grown, as it is not income from growing and manufacturing of coffee in India. Okay, grounded, cured, roasted and grounded in India, so it is outside India, so entire income will be business income, as only in agriculture income is considered if it is grown and manufactured in India. Okay, so in that case, entire income 100% will be 2,50,000 will be business income. And in the fourth part, income from sale of tea grown and manufactured in Shimla, 4 lakh. In that case, 60% will be agriculture income and 40% will be business income. And the last part, income from sapling and seedling growing in nursery and Cochin, basic operation was not carried out by your own land. In that case, 80,000 entire amount will be agriculture income, as it is written in the definition of agriculture income that income from nursery is an agriculture income. Okay, so let's see the solution. Computation of business income and agriculture income of Miss Vivita for the assessment year 2021. Serial number, source of income, gross, business income and agriculture income is given. Okay, sale of centrifuged latex from rubber plant grown in India, 3 lakh is the gross income. So 35%, as I said, will be considered as business income and 65% will be agriculture income. They have computed accordingly. 35% business income and 65% is agriculture income. Okay, in part 2, sale of coffee grown and cured in India, 1 lakh. 25%, as I said, will be business income and 75% will be agriculture income. So they have computed 25,000, 75,000 accordingly. Sale of coffee grown and cured, roasted and grounded outside India, that is 2,50,000, as I said, it was outside India. though it has been received in India, it doesn't matter, but it was outside India. Entire income was income from growing and manufacturing of is outside India, that is Sri Lanka. So entire income will be as business income, that is 2,50,000. Okay, we'll see the note. For that, note is given. And point 4, sale of tea grown and manufactured in India, 4 lakh. 40%, as I said, will be business income and 60% will be agriculture income. So they have computed accordingly, 1,68,000 and 2,40,000. And sapling and seedling grown in nursery in India, 80,000. Entire income will be agriculture income. So total agriculture income is coming to 5,90,000 and business income is 5,40,000. Okay, let's see the note. For Roman 3 and Roman 5, note is given, where the income is derived from sale of coffee grown, cured, roasted and grounded by the seller in India. 40% of the income is taken as business income and balance as agriculture income. However, in this question, these operations are done in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Hence, there is no question of such apportionment and the whole income is taxable as business income. Okay, receipt of sale proceeds in India does not make this agriculture income. In this case, in the case of an SEC being a resident or non-resident, the income arising outside India is also chargeable to tax. So this line is important. You have to write this in the exam, that in case of resident or ordinary resident, the income arising outside India is also chargeable to tax. Okay. For part Roman 5, explanation is given. So explanation 3 to section 2(1)(a) provides that income derived from sapling or seedling grown in nursery would be deemed to be agriculture income whether or not basic operation were carried out on land. Okay, that's it with all the illustrations of this chapter. In next part, I will be covering exercises, okay, of this chapter. Hope you have understood. If there is a doubt, please write me on the comment box. Okay, and this is the third part, so follow me, do subscribe the channel and also click on the bell icon and do share with your friends so that they can also avail the benefit of this channel. And don't forget to subscribe and also click on the bell icon for next updated videos. Okay, soon I will be uploading and try to solve as much as question as possible of all the chapters. Let's see, a few time are left. I'll try to do it as fast as possible. So study hard, don't waste your time, stay healthy. And one more thing, one more announcement, anyone willing to solve CA final indirect tax ICAI questions, please click on the link given in the description box. Okay, do subscribe both the channels, both are very helpful, and also share with your friends so that they can also avail the benefit. Stay healthy, bye bye, eat healthy and eat as much as is required. Don't eat overload yourself so that you will feel sleepy. Don't overload yourself, eat limited so that you be able to study. Somebody has a habit of studying in the morning, as our elderly people tells that in the morning you get to learn, and whatever you study in the morning, that stores in your mind. That is true. I have also tried it and it's very good to study in the morning, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever time you can get up. So try to get up in the early in the morning, and if somebody has the habit of studying at night, so they can study at night as well, so no issue. So stay healthy and study hard. Okay, bye bye, thank you very much.